What is going on, all you Pokemon collecting maniacs out there? This is Ryan, the PikaPikaPaPa, and just like we do at the end of every single month, we're going to talk about the overall state of the hobby here in the Pokemon collecting and investing space. And one of the reasons I started doing this video series is because I keep way more data than you all see and then I have time to do content around, right? Like, I warehouse top 20 singles prices for the XY era, Sword and Shield era, Sun and Moon era, Scarlet and Violet era. I do it for booster boxes as well, and I just keep all of this information, and I found that trying to produce content around all of that, it just doesn't work. Plus, to be honest with you, not a lot of people watch dedicated content around the Sun and Moon and XY era, which I'm telling you right now, if you don't stay until we talk about that in this video, you're out of your mind, because what's going on in those two spaces is absolutely incredible, and not a lot of people are talking about them. So that was why I started this video series. There's so many things that are going on in the hobby beyond what everybody's talking about right now. Obviously, I have the Prismatic Evolutions special illustration cards right here because I would be a fool not to start off talking about that, because that's what the hobby's all abuzz about. But I promise you, outside of Prismatic, outside of Surging Sparks, outside of Twilight Masquerade, outside of Scarlet and Violet, there are some really exciting things that are happening, and they're flying under the radar, and I think there's some great opportunities. And we're going to talk about it here throughout the course of this video. So with that being said, listen, as I said, we warehouse tons of data. We do all kinds of data dives and trend analysis, and we always believe, listen, you work hard for your money, I work hard for mine. If we choose to spend it, we should do it with the most knowledge we can possibly gather. So I always try and provide information. If that type of stuff jives with you, I would love it if you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you like what you see, give us a thumbs up, and if you have questions or comments, drop them down below. I read all of them, and I absolutely love them. So with that being said, here we are, right? We have Prismatic Evolutions coming out. Basically anything that you can think of, from regular Elite Trainer boxes to Pokemon Center exclusive ETBs to surprise boxes, like everything is sold out. Obviously, this is going to be a very, very hype set, and obviously the market is already reacting to it. So I thought I would start off not just showing the cards, but obviously there's a couple products that I am hunting after highly, just like everybody else. And these are the three things that I think have the best opportunity to outperform in the long run. And the first one is no surprise. I have, ever since Scarlet and Violet came out, I have been borderline obsessed with Pokemon Center exclusive Elite Trainer boxes. I love the fact that they have the stamped promo. I love the fact that they are finally truly unique, right? They are truly exclusive. I mean, Brilliant Stars just sold out on the Pokemon Center, right? Brilliant Stars from Sword and Shield, the Pokemon Center exclusive Elite Trainer box, just sold out on the Pokemon Center here in the US. So think about that. However, almost all of the ones from the Scarlet and Violet era are already sold out and have no signs of coming back in stock, right? Twilight Masquerade was really the last big one that was kind of holding on in the in-stock category here in the Pokemon Center in the US, and it finally sold out really close to the same day that Brilliant Stars did. So I love this product. I think this Prismatic Evolutions one is going to be worth a ton of money. That stamped Eevee card is going to go through the roof. We're going to talk about more stamped promos later on in this video because they're having themselves a heck of a time in the market right now. But that being said, I mean, I think this is going to rival the 151 Pokemon Center exclusive Elite Trainer boxes. I really do. You know, the Snorlax in there is at $100. I think this Eevee is probably a better card than that Snorlax, so I think it could get up in the $100 range. Prismatic Evolutions has all the hype around it. So, I mean, this is a no-brainer. Now, actually being able to buy it is very different than understanding that it's a no-brainer, right? I guarantee as soon as this pops back in stock on the Pokemon Center, it is going to vanish almost immediately. So the other products that I like, which might be more readily available, is I really like that surprise box in Prismatic Evolutions. Matter of fact, I did a whole video on it. I love the fact that it is going to have one of those stamped promo cards in there. I love the fact that you're not going to know which one it is. I think one or two of those stamped promos cards is going to pop off. It might not be a $300, $400, $500 card or any lunacy like that, but we might end up in the $100 range, $120 range, something like that. And you know, these boxes sell for $23 retail. So if you get one of those that pops off, and then you have Prismatic Evolution packs in there, and it's the unknown. People buy sealed product because of the unknown, because of the chance to pull these big cards. So I think you're going to have the packs with a chance to pull some of those awesome special illustrations we talked about. You're going to have the opportunity to pull some stamped promo cards. I think that's going to do really well. And my other favorite product, I really like these 2-pack blisters, specifically because of that Pokemon Day stamped Eevee card that's in there. I mean, if you want any examples of what those things can do, just look at 3-pack blisters and what those 3-pack blisters with a decent promo card have done over time. We did a video about a year ago about the rate of return of 3-pack blisters, and it is incredible. Those things do really, really well, and they sell with a decent degree of velocity on eBay. So one of the things you always want to consider if you're buying sealed product is there going to be a market to sell it into in the future. It doesn't do you any good if you have a ton of this product and TCG Player tells you it's worth $400, but there's nobody out there to sell it to. So these products have a very strong track record of return. You can look at, and I don't like to compare Evolving Skies too closely to Prismatic Evolutions because Evolving Skies is like just in a crazy league of its own, but if you look at the Evolving Skies 3-pack blister pack that has the Umbreon in there, you know, those are going for the $70 range right now. So it'll take a while for this to get there, but that will definitely appreciate in value over time. And these are my 3 favorite sealed products from Prismatic Evolution. So listen, now we're going to get into what has been going on at the macro level of the hobby. And my gosh, I am so incredibly excited because there's some wild trends going on out there. Now, the first thing I'm going to talk about is the top 20 singles cards from the XY era and the Sun and Moon era. And I started warehousing these numbers 14 months ago, and I did it specifically so we would have moments like this. So we would see when the trend starts to turn up or when trends start to come down or when we start to hit support lines here in the market. And for me, the biggest story of 2024 has been the XY top 20 singles cards. So just to explain what that is, every single month in the middle of the month, I pull up Polkadata.io, I pull up my Excel spreadsheet, and I have all 12 sets that had booster boxes in the XY era, and I have the top 20 singles cards, and I record their price at the middle of every single month. Then I aggregate those prices, and that's what you have here. So you can see that in the beginning of, back in October when I first started doing this, it was a value of $4,400. Then you can see the top 20 singles card prices dropped from October to November down to $4,200, then November to December, just a little bit down to $4,200, $4,700. And ever since then, all of 2024, the total value of those top 20 singles cards from all 12 sets in the XY era that have booster boxes have been slowly and steadily gaining in price. And slowly and steadily is the operative words here, because if you look, that is what I consider healthy growth. We don't have these huge spikes up and these giant flops afterwards. It has just been slow and steady growth in the XY era, literally all of 2024, which is very exciting. There's some awesome cardboard in there that is going for some ridiculously low prices compared to Sun and Moon, and especially compared to some of these ultra modern cards in the Scarlet and Violet era, where guess what? There are going to be far more of these in the Scarlet and Violet era. There are going to be far more in Gem Mint 10 conditions versus what you find in the XY era. Yet a lot of these cards in the XY era are going for really, really low prices right now. Now, Sun and Moon is the same thing. You can see that when we started doing this, the price was really high. The average or the total value of those top 20 singles cards from all 12 sets in the Sun and Moon era that had booster boxes was all the way up at $12,604. And you will see that for the next 6 months, the prices were coming down, right? And then we saw things start to settle a bit. We saw that as like a support line. We started to understand a lot of these cards were hitting points where the market was saying, hey, listen, these cards have been dropping for a while. Like, these cards are worth more than that. So when they start to hit these support lines, people start to buy. And when people start to buy, then we start to see prices go up again. So that's what we've seen on the backside of that dip, right? You start to see the Sun and Moon prices again. They're growing slowly, they're growing steadily, they're growing organically, but you are starting to see the top 20 singles card prices from all the sets that have booster boxes in the Sun and Moon era start to go up again, which for me, again, much smoother, much steadier. I'm really, really comfortable with the price appreciation that we're seeing there. Now, I don't just look at the singles cards, right? That would be silly because we all know sealed is king in the Pokemon space. So I also look at the booster boxes. Now, if you look at the graph in the upper right-hand corner, those are the 12 booster boxes from the XY era. And I said, okay, if you buy one of them, one of all 12 back when we first started this, and then we graph the value of those 12 over time. And you see a lot of hard ups, hard downs, this and that. But what you need to remember about the XY era is there were very few people back then who were thinking, hey, I'm going to keep this booster box sealed because in the future, I think it could be worth a lot of money. Almost all of those booster boxes were ripped. There were far fewer that were produced, and there were even fewer that were actually kept sealed over the long run, which is why those booster boxes are so expensive. And it's why you'll see these big price swings because they don't sell with a lot of velocity. For example, a single sell of like a Phantom Forces booster box can really drive this price up or down month over month. So instead of looking at kind of how it moves month to month, I almost trend line it out. I look at where it started, I look at where it's at today, and there has been steady growth over time. Sure, there's ups, sure, there's downs. There's that way in any type of investing, but guess what? It is still up over the long run, which is exactly what we should expect. And I do think those XY booster boxes, man, there's some great values out there. I just think they still a couple of them that are really undervalued. So don't hesitate to take a look at them. Now, when you look at the Sun and Moon booster boxes, very different from XY. Very few ups and downs like that, but just this steady growth curve. I mean, it has been really impressive to watch these Sun and Moon booster boxes. I remember when I first started keeping this information, one of the things I was wondering is how high is high? How high can these Sun and Moon booster boxes go? I remember them crossing the $400, $500, $600 thresholds, and I kept thinking, man, can these keep going? Can they keep growing with everybody focused at that time on Sword and Shield and all these alt arts and, Lost Origin and Brilliant Stars and Evolving Skies? Like, can these Sun and Moon booster boxes continue to grow? And they did. They obviously have. And even now, with all the excitement going on in the Scarlet and Violet era, guess what? The Sun and Moon booster boxes are continuing to grow. Not a lot month over month. You'll see the gains are like 1-2% as an aggregate month over month, but that's really steady. That's really, really healthy. That is exactly what I like to see. So really good story here, really from the singles cards and from the booster box perspective, both for the XY and for the Sun and Moon era for really the course of this year. The one thing that I thought was a really interesting trend that I wanted to call out, and we talk about this a lot on the channel, and I'm going to show you 3 perfect examples of this here on the next slide, but we talk about these support and resistance lines, right? The support line is when a card gets down to a certain price point, and then guess what? The market's like, you know what? The card's a bit worth more than this. So the price has gotten low enough that everybody kind of starts piling in on it, and then you see the price start to go up. So we talked about seeing that in the XY era, the Sun and Moon, but we might be seeing a little bit of that in the Sword and Shield era. So I did this breakdown in much more detail in the Sword and Shield era in a whole different video, which is dedicated just to Sword and Shield breakdown. But look, this is kind of what you see here, right? You see that these sets and these top 20 singles cards, they kind of have this downward trend, then they start to flatten out a little bit, and then they start to go up. Now, Sword and Shield, you got to take that sharp spike up with a big grain of salt, okay? Because if you think about what happened then, that was towards the very end of the era. That was when the booster boxes here in the US on the Pokemon Center started to sell out left and right. People were FOMOing, they were losing their ever-loving minds buying these buying these alt arts, and the prices just absolutely went through the roof. Here on the channel, we were watching it, we were all saying, listen, this isn't normal, this isn't organic, prices are gonna fall, this is a FOMO-driven rally, and it did. However, it has not given back all of those FOMO gains. It is actually starting to flatten out a little bit over the last couple months, and last month to this month, we're starting to see it tick up a little bit. So in my mind, I'm like, are we going to see it follow the same pattern that we've seen in XY, that we're starting to see in Sun and Moon, where we're going to go through a period of, okay, all the FOMO's out, all of the silliness is out. Are we going to start to see these cards kind of slowly and steadily start to organically grow in a more healthy way over time? So we don't know. That's why this channel exists. That's why I keep the data. That's why I share it with you. But it's something that we will be keeping a very close eye on here on the channel over the next couple months. So the next thing that I wanted to promise you that we would talk about here are some of these support lines. And I wanted to highlight the Sun and Moon era particularly because I used to do this. So for the Sword and Shield era, what I do is I go through all 12 sets and we'll say, okay, last month, the top 20 singles cards were this price, this month they're this month, this is how they've moved month over month. We'll talk about individual cards that are showing support lines. So we get really into the nitty gritty of it. I used to do it for Sun and Moon. I used to do it for XY, but to be honest with you, nobody watched the content. So I simply stopped doing it. But some of the things that we were able to identify before I stopped doing that content were all 3 of these cards, and it's really interesting. Like, you look at that Lily card, talk about a fantastic example. That is one of the iconic cards of the Sun and Moon era, and you'll see 1 year ago it was up at $500 and it worked its way down for about 6 to 7 months, really about 6 months there, right? And it was working its way down and down and down, and then I remember I was doing the Sun and Moon content and it hit $400, and we were sitting here, we're like, listen, we don't have a crystal ball. We have no idea to predict what the future is going to hold, but this card's finding a lot of support at $400. Do not be surprised if this card bounces. And what have we seen over the last 3 months? Not only has this card bounced, but it has regained almost all of the losses from where it was in the beginning of the year. So it was fascinating to say, listen, it spent a month and a half at that $400 mark. People started to buy. You see those blue lines, how they get really, really high, right? People said this is $400. People started to buy like crazy, and the price has been on an upward trend ever since. And the same thing, right? The Mega Sableye and Tyranitar card down there. It doesn't matter if you're a big fan of Mega Sableye or Tyranitar. The artwork on that card is absolutely amazing, and it is one of the cards that people kind of hold in the forefront of their memory when you're talking about the Sun and Moon era. And it did the exact same thing. You'll see it was working its way down, found that support line, right? You see those light blue bars getting really high. It found the support line. People started to buy it, and what happened? The price started to go back up, and of course it gave back some of the gains in the middle of the year, but now it's up 2% versus where it started a year ago. So really cool lesson there. And the other one right here is that Gardevoir and Sylveon card. We know evolution cards are hot to trot right now, and they have been for a while. I think that Moonbreon is really starting to push some of these prices higher and higher, and all evolutions are just organically benefiting from the excitement around that card, and especially Prismatic Evolutions isn't hurting that. But again, look, back in February, hit the support line. This one was sitting there right for about 2 months, and then all of a sudden it popped back up. So couple lessons there that I want to take away. Not only that it's a cool opportunity to be able to identify these support lines, and again, you never know what's going to happen. Nobody has a crystal ball. But the other thing that's cool is if you look at this, these were different cards that had different support lines at different times, right? Like the Gardevoir and Sylveon card started in February, right? And then the Mega Sableye and Tyranitar card started a little bit later. And then the Lily card started even later than that. And the point of this is, at any time in the hobby, you can find some really great cards that are hitting some support lines and have some really awesome potential for long-term value. So I thought this was a cool lesson. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and we're going to keep talking through the rest of this video about some other really cool stuff. So speaking of that, we can't talk about the state of the hobby without talking about the two big sets that are here right now. We talked about the one that's coming in the future, but you got Surging Sparks, you got Twilight Masquerade. I can't believe, I had to double check this, but Surging Sparks booster boxes sold out on the Pokemon Center. You know, they're going for $200 on the secondary market. According to TCG Player, it's a $202 booster box. Now, I do remember Lost Origin and Brilliant Stars went through something similar. As soon as they came out, you know, they got really, really hot. Now the booster box prices got over MSRP. Back then, MSRP was $143. Those booster boxes on the secondary market got to 160 something bucks. And then Pokemon Company immediately had a restock, right? They reflooded the market with it. Prices came back down a bit. So don't be surprised if we see the same thing here in the Surging Sparks booster box case. And then the Pikachu and the Greninja, we've been talking about those cards a lot. You know, the reality is those are valued really, really high for where they are in their life cycle. And as I've said, and I've pointed out on a factual basis, they're valued higher right now than Umbreon, the Moonbreon from Evolving Skies was at that point in its life cycle. Not a good thing, not a bad thing, it's just a fact. It is what it is, right? So super cool to call that out. And then Twilight Masquerade booster boxes, they're starting to come down a little bit. They're starting to flatten out. I think a lot of the wind has been taken out of that sale because people are spending money on Surging Sparks and people are spending money on Prismatic Evolution. So really cool to keep an eye on these cards and kind of see how they're going, because the new modern trend, I do think the back half of Scarlet Violet is going to have some really big cards, some really great chase cards. So seeing how these perform can give us some idea of what those future chase cards might do. And as I said, listen, stamped promos. I mean, keep an eye out for any stamped promo that comes out, any new release that has one of these types cards in it. I know the ones right on this page are kind of overly indexed towards the Pokemon Center exclusive Elite Trainer boxes. That's what most of these are, except that Squirtle card. But to be honest with you, the stamp promo space as a whole in the Scarlet and Violet era is doing really, really well. I mean, you can just name all kinds of different ones, and a lot of the videos that we do where we look at the hottest cards, the cards that are moving the month, the most stamp promos are all over there. So look at it. I mean, like I said, the Snorlax is over $100. I mean, you got the Pikachu from the Paldea Evolved Pokemon Center exclusive ETB. That's at 65 bucks. The Charmander from Obsidian Flames is at 83. The Mimikyu, man, we talked about the Mimikyu so much on this channel. That card was so undervalued for so long, and now it's finally popped up to the $40 mark. And even the Magneton over there, right? I mean, that's sitting at $41. So stamp promos, if you have the opportunity to get your hands on it at release, no matter what it is, I certainly would do that, because it just seems like the market is feverish over them right now. And then the next thing right here, I always end this video talking about the overall grading in the TCG space as a whole. And a lot of grading isn't good, it's not bad, but for me, when there's a lot of grading, it makes me feel like the market believes there's a lot of cards right now that have the potential to do well in the long run. Like, people grade cards for a couple different reasons. You might grade them to flip them, to make a huge profit. You might grade them to store them. That way, hey, listen, in the long run, I think this card's gonna appreciate in value. I wanna have it in that PSA 10 holder. But no matter why people are getting cards graded, I just think it shows that the market is really strong and the overall hobby is in a good position. And you look at last month versus this month, I mean, there was a crazy increase in grading volume, right? September to October was up 29% this year in terms of overall TCG grading volume at PSA. And then when you compare that to 2023, the same time period in 2023, it was actually down 7.5%. And the same time period in 2022, it was up 5%. Both a very far cry from up 29%. But you do have to remember, Pokemon Company International, they launched their eras in 3 different years. So depending on what year it is, could depend on the grading volume. But the net of all of this is I'm very excited to see what October to November looks like. Like you see that back in July was a really strong month. August was a really strong month. August was really, really strong. September dropped. And then obviously October was really good. So we'll see if November is able to continue the trend. I hope it does. I'll tell you right now, I feel really good about where the hobby is. I do think we're a little frothy, right? I think there's a lot of excitement. I think there's a lot of money being thrown around, especially in the ultra modern space. But I have learned that, listen, a strong Pokemon market, a strong card market overall is great for all of us. It's a ton of fun to be a part of. I love the artwork. I love the direction we're heading in. And I couldn't be happier to be a part of this with all of you. So if you made it to the end of this video and you enjoyed the content and you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. You got questions or comments, drop them down below. And as always, if you like what you see, give us a big old thumbs up. I appreciate you more than I can say. I hope you have an epic one. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks, everybody. Bye.